So we raised about 800 odd crores. The idea was that, as I said, why can't a common man also become part of a startup journey, right?
What is crowdfunding?
Can a lot of people pool their funds together and fund a specific asset? One of the first crowdfunding experiments uh, across the world happened in India.
Raising funds in 2008 and raising funds in 2024. What are the two differences?
In a way, your avenues have increased multifold.
How you have found your first investor?
And I was very clear with them that this is the situation, and now you tell me how do we take it forward. It's not my fault that my co-founder has other priorities.
What is the first initial check size?
My first venture was about, I think, 25 odd lakhs. The understanding of how and when to keep pivoting your idea, right?
What three things you check in a startup?
I think the first of all, and the most important is the team. Try to artificially grow the whole startup. That itself is a big red flag.
If you are bootstrapped, then there is a high chance of success.
Because if you are able to bootstrap and if you're able to sustain to a particular level, I think any investor would obviously look at you in a good light. Even VC funds have understood that they cannot just put money behind a blind growth.
What is Pandora?
Pandora is India's first fractional investment and a tokenization platform for content IP.
We wanted to know what are the 1-2 learnings which we have learned in a hard way.
So I think there are 2-3 things. One is
Hello viewers, welcome to a new episode of Sign Up Startup, powered by Bharat Valley Incubator and Accelerator Private Limited, your launchpad for innovation. So today we will learn from him both from the startup founder's perspective as well as VCs and angel investor perspective. He is a pioneer in Web 3.0 technology and advising many startups to grow and implement Web 3.0 technology. So he is India's leading entrepreneur coach. Please welcome Mr. Satish Kataria, founder of Pandora. So hello, Mr. Satish. Welcome to our podcast. First of all, how are you feeling today?
I'm feeling great, and thanks so much for giving me this opportunity and giving me a chance to speak to your audience and kind of telling me about my journey with them. So thanks so much.
I am specifically very interested in today's podcast because as I have already introduced to our audience that you are a pioneer in this Web 3.0 technology which is coming and which is very essential for the youth as well as the upcoming entrepreneurs to know. So let's start today's podcast with the first thing first about your journey, how you started your journey and how you have started your venture as an investor. So please elaborate.
Sure. So I think today marks almost 24 years of my career. After I did my PGTM from Symbiosis Pune.
Okay.
And my first, I would say about 8 years, I was working with some leading corporates like Apollo Tires when I was handling BR and entire brand management. It was in 2008, I believe, where I kind of decided that enough of marketing and let's change gears now. So I kind of had almost a 180-degree lateral shift and shifted from marketing to venture capital space. So there I got an opportunity to work with India REIT, which was a real estate fund by Ajay Pirama, and I was heading investor relations with them. So I worked with them for about 2 years, where I learned the ropes of how does a PE fund actually works, right? And since also I was responsible for the entire fundraising process with them. So we raised about 800 odd crores through various private wealth managers for their first real estate fund. And we were also kind of trying to raise an offshore real estate fund. But that was the time when, unfortunately, the global fintech crash happened, right? And we had to take a break from there.
Yeah.
Then I shifted to Vista Reliquia Media Fund, which was India's one of the first SEBI-approved fund investing into media and films,
Okay.
right? So again, I did that for about a year and a half. It was an interesting, short, and a very insightful journey, wherein I learned how to look at media as an investment asset class, how to evaluate media, because normally people say that when you're investing in films, how can you be so sure? Because no one can predict,
Yeah.
whether a film will be a hit or a flop. But that was an interesting journey. We tried to build some interesting financial models around it, trying to use a lot of data analytics to understand that if film is of a particular genre and a particular actor, how it will perform. Right. So we used that analysis and invested in about 12 odd films.
Okay.
So that was an interesting journey. 2010 is when I thought of venturing out on my own.
Okay.
And what was happening was that there was a time when startups was just starting to pick up
Yeah.
as an asset class.
Yeah.
This was a year when Flipkart had just got their first few checks.
Yeah.
Right. But then I thought that, if the industry has to really grow, it can't just depend on those 300, 400 handful of investors that India had. Right. We have to have more people supporting the entrepreneurs so that more and more ventures could be found.
Yes.
And that took me to crowdfunding, which was just coming up as a new global phenomenon at that time. And I kind of looked around, did some more research on that, and
Yeah.
kind of brought a Singapore-based company called GrowVC
Okay.
to India,
Okay.
since they already had the technology to build this platform. So we launched GrowVC India with them and launched equity crowdfunding in India to help early stage startups raise funding from the masses.
Okay.
Right. The idea was that, as I said, why can't a common man also become part of a startup journey, right? And this was when no one had heard about crowdfunding in India at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So that lasted for about a year and a half. But then what I realized was that uh, even there, most of the people who were coming on board were already angel investors, right? Unfortunately, the common man was still not able to understand how startup as an asset class works. It was very esoteric for them
Yeah.
at that point in time. So I then decided to give it a break. I thought maybe we have launched it before time, so let's give it some break. So I worked for the next 1.5 years with Mr. Pratik Gupta, who's the co-founder of Cyber Media,
Okay.
and he's also co-founder of Indian Angel Network. So I helped him to set up an accelerator. Plus, I was also mentoring few of his industry companies with go-to-market strategies. 2013, I again came back to crowdfunding and launched Catapult, which was again, but this time it was not equity-based crowdfunding. It was a reward-based crowdfunding platform.
Okay.
Which then this journey lasted for about 5 years. We had about 100 plus startups to raise funding. We did a lot of innovative initiatives like launching the Changemaker Challenge, which was India's one of the biggest offline crowdfunding event series, supported by Economic Times and Times of India Group,
Yeah.
plus a host of other startups. Right. I got my exit sometime in 2017 when a media company decided to acquire the whole platform
Okay.
from me. Then I joined Zone Startups as an entrepreneur in residence, one of their first EIR, wherein I was helping some of their mentee companies for fundraising and
Okay.
go-to-market strategies.
Okay.
Then I shifted to Viridian Ventures, which was again a Cat 1 AIF fund, investing into early stage startups. Right. So again, I was part of the investment team, and we worked with them for about 2 years, kind of helping them to structure the entire fund as well as investment thesis for them. But then when COVID came, they were not able to sustain the fund as such because their main business was real estate.
Yeah.
Though they decided to wrap up the fund. That then led me to form a company called Avijak. Avijak was again one of India's first revenue-based financing platform.
Okay.
Right. So we built this platform internally, which was then acquired within first 6 months by a company called GetVantage, which was into D2C revenue-based funding.
Okay.
So they acquired the platform, and I worked with them for about 6 months as part of the engagement. And then I again moved out from there. And then I think from last 1 year or so, I've been working on this platform called Fandora,
Okay.
wherein we are trying to bring the benefits of fractional investment and tokenization into the content IP space. So I think that's been the journey.
I think that is a very great and long journey. So, really appreciate your time today for this podcast. So, we will not delay. Let's start the Fab 5 segment. So, the first question is, what is crowdfunding? If you can explain it in a very simple and easy manner.
So I think crowdfunding is basically a kind of a participative and a democratic way of raising funds, right? Be it for any asset class, be it for startups or any alternative asset or any other object, right? Because normally when someone thinks about funding, one normally thinks that you will approach just few people who have control on the funds, and they will be the one who will be kind of putting in funds. But the problem with that model is that when there are very few funders, they also directly or indirectly control the outcome. Right, and that is the reason why a lot of these conventional funding models are quite lopsided. Right, not giving the complete control to the entrepreneur or the founder or the creator in that sense. And I think that is what led to crowdfunding, wherein the idea was that can a lot of people pool their funds together and fund a specific asset, right? And I think it's not new. I mean, indeed, you'll be surprised to know that one of the first crowdfunding experiments uh, across the world happened in India, and this was the film called Anand. The film called Manthan, which was based on the entire Amul cooperative movement, right? And this film was actually funded by, I guess, there were about some 500,000 people, and who each gave about 2 rupees each, to raise the money for this film, right? And this I'm talking about 1978, right? It was Sam Benegal's movie, and the movie turned out to be quite a big success. And I think it kind of talks about how the entire Amul revolution came about, right? So that was one of the very first example of how crowdfunding actually works. When people who are passionate about the project, they kind of pool in their funds and they are able to invest that funds into a specific project or asset class. So that's what crowdfunding is.
So our next question is, if you are a startup founder who is in idea stage, then and you don't have money, okay, that is a very obvious thing in young entrepreneurs. So how they should proceed? What are steps they should take to make a product and take it to the next level?
So I think it also depends on what the kind of idea you have, right? If you think that you can still remain bootstrap and still have the product with you, and at least try to kind of get that product to the first set of your customers, and get feedback as well as your initial sales, I think nothing like that. Right, that's the best way. If that is not feasible and you still need some funds to kind of launch your product, the second best tool obviously is tools like crowdfunding, or approach your friends and family, right? Because that's why they are the ones who can be your first supporters. So that's a very good way of raising money, and kind of get that initial capital to put in your product and launch the product in the market. Right, and I think once you have built some initial traction, I think then today there are multiple avenues in India, right, from your seed investors to angel investors, who will be happy to offer you more advanced funding from there on.
Okay. Raising funds in 2008 and raising funds in 2024. What are the two, three difference you see?
Oh, I think a lot has changed. Uh, in a way, your avenues have increased multifold, right? Because at that time, we again have very limited options, right? And then I think today, right from your institutions to your banks to your angel investors to your online platforms, today you have multiple avenues to be able to raise funds for yourself, right? Provided your idea is really good and you have a right team behind you, right? But then on the other hand, I guess also between 2008 and 2024, investors have learned their lessons. Entrepreneurs have learned their lessons because the market has gone through, I think, 2, 3 cycles at least. Right. And so investors have become more mature in terms of understanding, how to qualify a startup for funding, and how to take care of multiple things like governance in their startup, right? Also, I believe startups have become more mature, right? Gone are the days when startups can just raise money for ideas on back of an envelope or back of a napkin. Today, I think investors expect a lot more diligence, maturity in entrepreneurs who are about to raise funds, and a much more clarity on how those funds would be utilized. Right. So I think, I guess, overall, in one line, the markets have improved, and if your idea is good, there is no lack of funding.
The next question is, it is specific to you and your ventures, that how you have found your first investor.
Okay, I think in my case, again, I approached friends and family. Right, so that was my the first pool that I dipped into. And I mean, obviously, convincing your friends is more easier because they are more fool for you. Right, and I think then it also depends on how you are able to then build and use those funds and kind of generate your trust in the market, right? So there are multiple elements, right, from being right with your product formation as such, uh, and also about how you are able to position yourself in the market, right? Because both these factors are critical. Indeed, I remember I had a very interesting lesson in my life when I was about to raise my first round of external investor funding, angel funding, and we had also already kind of got 2 3 commitments from that time, and this was for Catapult itself.
Okay.
When for some reasons my co-founder suddenly decided to drop,
Okay.
right? And that actually put me in a very peculiar situation because normally then that means that I'm the only founder left, right? And investors are normally wary of investing into solo founders. They often want a team to invest into, right? But then I think, fortunately, the investors were kind enough, and I was very clear with them that this is the situation, and now you tell me how do we take it forward? Because it's not my fault that my co-founder has other priorities, but I will obviously try to bring more co-founders on board, right?
Yeah.
And so I think at that time, those investors were kind enough to place a trust in me, and they still decided to kind of forward their commitments, and I was able to get that round as well.
Okay.
So yeah, it was a good lesson and humbling experience.
Yeah.
But yes, that is what entrepreneurship is all about.
So, what is the first initial check size which you?
I raised my first venture was about I think 25 odd lakhs.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's how it started.
Okay. So, the next question is taking a startup till Series A, and from there, Series A to Series B, C, D, that both are different set of skills are required. So, what is, in your opinion, what is the 1 2 skills which is very play a vital role from Series A to Series D, D, E?
I think it's as an entrepreneur, it's just like as being a father, right? When your baby is just born, you're much more attached to him. You're much more protective about him. But when the baby starts to grow, and as they say that when a baby's shoe size fit your shoe size, he has grown, and now he needs to be given his independence.
Okay.
Right? I think that same is the journey of an entrepreneur, right? When your startup is very young, very fresh, obviously you'll be fully involved with this, right? Till a particular stage. But then after a particular stage, I think you need to give it more freedom. Let more professionals come in. You have to delegate more responsibilities because until and unless you do not bring in that team, you personally may not be able to scale it up to that level.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that uh, detachment with your idea, just because it is your idea, is a very particular skill, right? And you need to know when is the right time to start detaching from your idea so that that idea can take its own journey, right? And you can then sit back and just enjoy the growth as such. The second, obviously, is I think the understanding of how and when to keep pivoting your idea, right? Because sometimes what you have started out may not end up, what the idea will grow into, right? So pivoting about understanding those market feedback that you're getting without being too attached to them is again a very critical skill set, right? Because you have to pivot so that the idea keeps growing and you're able to finally able to give to your customers what they need. Right. I think that again is a critical skill set that is required. And I think third, it's all about uh, you know uh, what I would say is your own integrity with the idea, right? Because a lot of times, what has happened in the past is in the funding boom which happened, a lot of entrepreneurs thought that it would be easy to kind of take a quick buck out of it, or go the easy way,
Yeah.
right? Which I think now all of us have learned our lessons. It's not the right way to do, right? No matter what stage you are, and I think I mean, I think it's very important to kind of maintain that integrity with you, and say things as they are, right? And I think that will win you more friends and win you more trust in the overall market in the long term. So I think these are the 3 4 key sets which are required.
So, let's come to the last question of this segment, that is, how do you see compliance play a role as from VC perspective?
I think it's a very, very critical element, right? And as I said, uh, this is something which, in the boom cycle, both entrepreneurs as well as investors faltered on, right? And that is the reason why today large companies across domains. I mean, I would not need the name, but I think everyone knows what I'm talking about, right? And they have been facing challenges. And it's not that it's only the entrepreneur, even the investors face challenges because ultimately they are also accountable for the money that they've invested in.
Yeah.
Right. So I think it's very important to keep your books clean. It's very important to kind of follow those compliances. I do understand that we being in India, there are a lot of compliances that we have to follow through as opposed to if you were in US or any other country. But I think in a way it's helpful only because it kind of helps us to maintain and kind of understand that what direction are we going in. And there's nothing wrong from a compliance perspective, from an accounting perspective that we're doing wrong. Right. And I think the more cleaner we are in the initial days, the easier it will be to sustain that whole movement, and easier it will be for us to convince other investors on board, right? Because otherwise, your due diligence itself will take a long, long time.
Okay.
Right. Again, I think I was reading a few days back that there was a well-funded company, and SoftBank was almost about to invest in that company. But then again, because the company was not clean from a accounting perspective, the SoftBank could not invest that money in that because that it turned out to be it came out at that time, right? So sometime or the other it will come out, and at that time you will be in a fixed time.
Okay. So that was the conclusion of our first segment, and it was really an insightful segment. So let's come to the next segment, that is VC secret segment. So viewers, before going to the VC secret segment, I want to reveal a secret that Mr. Satish is author of the book called Unblock. So we will keep the link in description. You can go and check this out. Of course, we will ask his secret in our separate segment, but I will really want all of you to read this book because it will inspire you to build, grow, and scale. So, Mr. Satish, so let's come to the VC secret segment. So, whenever you are evaluating a startup, specifically from your perspective, what three things you check in a startup?
Right. I think the first of all and the most important is the team, right? Because it is a team which has to execute the whole vision behind it, right? And even if the idea needs to be pivoted, if the team is strong and kind of committed towards that startup, it can take it up. Otherwise, if the team itself is weak,
Okay.
no matter how much funding you give, you will not be able to sustain that whole momentum of the startup, right? So I think,
Okay.
be it early stage or be it late stage, ultimately the founders and the team is one of the most critical factors, right? The second is, what I always say that the area in which your startup is operating, right? Uh, it it needs to be a kind, even if it's a $0 billion idea, it has to be that. It cannot be a $0 million idea, right?
Okay.
So because idea is that, especially when we are investing, and especially the early stages, we should be convinced that there's a huge growth potential out there, right? And there's a huge unmet market need out there. Otherwise, we will, because early stage, the more early you invest, the more risky the investment gets.
Correct.
Right. So if the market is not there, if the potential is not there for not just one, maybe for multiple players to come and be able to successfully compete with each other, there's no point of investing in that startup, right? Because the market itself is not there, right? Your product market fit has not been done,
Right.
right? And I think third, obviously, is the I would say, your own understanding of your own business, because uh, and this is one thing which I normally say that when you see that take of a person, and especially when you see the financial estimates of that person, and if that person has tried to artificially grow the whole startup, that itself is a big red flag for us, because we all understand that, even if you wish that your startup will achieve a scale of 0 to 1 in 6 months, it won't happen, right? It will take 1 year, it will take 2 years, right? So you need to have enough perseverance to sustain that period, right? And you need to also reflect that in your financial estimates, right? See, we are not looking at numbers because we all know that what comes to us as an Excel initially will never be the actual picture of a startup 1 year down the line, right? That is just an indication.
Yes.
But if the indication is more towards the truth, towards the fact that yes, this startup will take some time to grow to a certain stage, I think we appreciate that honesty in an entrepreneur, right? Vis-a-vis an entrepreneur who's saying that, okay, I will be able to get 100% growth in 1 year, right? So I think these are these 3, 4 critical things which we as a VC would definitely love to evaluate and understand.
Okay. Super. So let's go to the next segment. That is a funniest segment of our podcast. That is myth versus fact.
So,
So basically, I will tell some statements. First, you have to say whether it is a myth or fact, and then you have to explain it. Okay. So the first statement is venture capital is not the only funding option for startups to scale.
I think that's a fact, right? And I think, as I said, there are multiple avenues open today, right from your friends and family, your crowdfunding, your collateral free debts, your support from your bootstrap level, your support from consumers itself. So there are multiple avenues for fundraising that one can look at today,
Right.
and obviously venture capital is not the only option.
Okay. If you are bootstrapped, then there is a high chance of success.
Uh, Again, I would say this is a fact, because if you are able to bootstrap and if you're able to sustain to a particular level,
Hmm.
I think any investor would obviously look at you, in a good light, right? And you would also be able to be better placed while negotiating the terms of investments,
Okay.
right? Because now this time you will not be desperate for funding, right? And you will be able to kind of extract a right value for your business.
Right.
So yeah, I guess bootstrapping obviously helps to kind of lead towards the success of the business.
Okay. VC investors only care about a startup's potential to grow quickly and generate profits.
I think today is a myth, right? I think even VC funds have understood that they cannot just put money behind a blind growth, right? And they need to support entrepreneurs in all the aspects of their business, be it helping them to build the business, be it giving them all the kind of support, uh, right from your infrastructure support to even psychological support as they are continuing to build their business, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's again one reason why we are seeing this new trend of venture studios coming in, right? Because a venture studio is not just a funding platform, but also a comprehensive business support platform,
Yeah.
which is given to a early stage entrepreneur so that he is well covered at all the angles and able to take the company to a next level from there,
Right.
right? So I think, I think that's true.
Okay. So once you secure VC funding, you no longer have control over your startup.
No, again, that's a myth. I think if you are smart enough and have been able to negotiate smartly with your VC fund, you would still have enough control on your business, right? Because ultimately, I guess the ball will stop in your court. You are accountable for the growth of that fund, right? See, understand, funding is just one enabler. It's not everything,
Right.
right? It's just one enabler to for you to execute your ideas, right?
Yeah.
Ultimately, what will bring you success is how successfully you're able to execute your ideas, and finally, is market able to accept those ideas, right? Today, we were not happy with the way Swiggy was delivering us. Swiggy would have not succeeded, irrespective of what funding they would have raised,
Yeah.
right? And we can all see the example in edtech,
Hmm.
right? Edtech became a huge phenomenon when the time was bad, when people were not able to get into physical education, and everyone started investing heavily into edtech space, right? But when the COVID situation turned around, people realized that, boss, if they have to learn something, they have to do physically only. Online is not the best way to do it,
Right.
right? And that obviously impacted the edtech startups at that time, because they realized that suddenly the market is lost, despite the fact that they may have already funds with them. But even if the market is not buying them, what will they do with the funds? They can't buy growth,
Right.
right? So I think that's a good enough example for that.
Yeah. The last one is if you don't have AI in your product, then you will not be succeed.
Again, it's a myth, right? So I think AI is an enabler, but I think even today, large companies, despite having spent billions of dollars of AI into AI, are still not sure of how to use AI, right? So they are still learning on this curve. So I think you are not late. I would say yes, AI would be a tool, and you should definitely look at it, and definitely try to understand how you can deploy AI as part of your operational efficiencies. But to say that your business depends on AI is a big myth.
Okay. So that is the conclusion of our myth versus fact segment. And we will come to the last segment of our podcast, that is secret to success.
Sure.
So this is a very small segment where from your experience till now, we wanted to know what are the 1, 2 learnings which you have learned in a hard way?
So I think there are two, three things. One is your own conviction, right? Because I would say entrepreneurship is not an easy journey,
Hmm.
right? Though it may look very glamorous from outside, it's not for the faint-hearted. It's a tough journey,
Yeah.
and you kind of have to face a lot of tough decisions throughout the whole day.
Hmm.
And despite the fact that uh, on one hand your family is depending on you, but on the other hand, you also have to devote your own time and effort to grow your business consistently, right? So it's not an easy journey, for sure. And but you have to. What will help you is that conviction in your idea,
Hmm.
right? Because otherwise you will not be able to persevere long.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's one. And second is, I think the statement which says that it takes a village to kind of grow a baby is very true, right? You
Okay.
cannot do everything single handed. You need partnerships, you need your team, you need support, you need mentorship, you need coaching to be able to become a successful entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Because without that, I think you will not be able to run long. So I think these are the two important learnings that I have come across during my journey so far.
Okay. So yeah, so that was our today's podcast, and I'm sure our viewers have learned a lot from this podcast. Specifically, when we you talked about the startup journey, the stages, the example which you have set, then our myth versus fact. Those were also a very clear cut thing that how you should approach when you are fundraising and how to negotiate with the investors. Then the team, how important is the team? So before concluding, how our viewers can reach out to you?
So I think I'm very easily available on my LinkedIn. So they can always kind of reach out to me. Happy to help them anytime.
Okay.
And yeah, that's the best way to reach out to me as such.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. So viewers, we will put the link in description so that you can straightly reach out to Mr. Satish and grow your startup. In next episode, we will come with a new guest who will share his insights so that you can build, grow, and scale your business. Till then, stay tuned.